Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the REPNY team for having us and an opportunity to present. I'm Vlada Kniff. I'm the president for the New York City Public Housing Preservation Trust. I am a public servant of over 18 years, spending my first decade at the Department of Environmental Protection, where I worked on a spectrum of projects and initiatives, everything from building out the green infrastructure program to setting utility rates and reducing New York City's demand. I also spent 7 years at NYCHA in both capital and operations divisions. And at one point, my team was managing over $1 billion of capital work. I am joined here by my new team, the Chief Project Officer, Jenny Gillette, and the Chief Operating Officer, Julian McLaughlin, who you'll hear from right after me, as well as the special guest Chief Operating Officer for NYCHA, Eva Trimble. Since the creation of the trust and the trust modernization program, we've had lots of questions around what design build is, how financing fits into our model, what operations look like. So we created this presentation to hopefully answer many of these questions. We've done a version of this presentation with Jenny and Julian at the industry event we held on June 11th. Some of you may have been there. Today, you will also be hearing from Eva for the first time. Eva, Julian, and Jenny, can I ask you to do brief introductions?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eva Trimble. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at NYCHA. I've been in this role about 2 years now, and at NYCHA overall almost 5, but I have almost 24 years of experience in New York City, most of that with the New York City Housing Preservation and Development Department, which I think I probably know some of you from my days there. I'm really excited to be working on this and partnering with the trust to make sure that we're providing best-in-class service to our residents, whether they're under the trust or under NYCHA. We're really looking forward to this, and thank you, Vada and Jillian, for having me today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Gillette, Chief Project Officer at the Public Housing Preservation Trust. I joined the trust almost 2 months ago now, so I'm their newest full-time team member, but I've got a chunk of experience in the private sector where I was an architect for many, many years, and then shifted towards my career in public service, first with the Department of Design and Construction, working in their technical public buildings department at first, and then supporting their alternative delivery efforts with respect to the borough-based jails program, and then ultimately their pilot program for both public buildings and infrastructure. Had a brief stint at the Port Authority as well, working again with their design division, alternative delivery and sustainability, pretty big initiatives there. So I'm here to help support their project delivery overall with the technical background, really focusing on how we're going to get these done with our new capital delivery methods.
Great, and my name is Jillian McLaughlin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Trust. I am also a NYCHA alum, and before my time at NYCHA, I spent time at the New York City Economic Development Corporation, primarily working on commercial real estate transactions. On the NYCHA side, I had the pleasure when Jonathan Caballo was coming on of working on some of the planning for scale up, and it's great to have the opportunity to now apply that to a public-public model. So really looking forward to the webinar today, and thanks for joining on a Friday afternoon.
Great. Thank you, Eva, Julian, and Jenny for those great introductions. Let's pull up the PowerPoint, and we can move to the next slide. Again, the trust was created by the state legislation in 2022 to specifically partner with NYCHA to modernize 25,000 apartments. And it is always an important reminder about the scale of NYCHA. The scale is 177,000 apartments occupying over 2,000 buildings spread across 335 developments. NYCHA is a city within a city where 1 in 17 New Yorkers call it their home. But this important affordable housing is failing many of our already vulnerable New Yorkers. In 2023, the physical needs assessment revealed that the total 20-year need is approximately $78 billion, but the most immediate needs are over 40 billion. And these needs are manifesting in day-to-day quality of life issues, things that EVA is solving for day-to-day for residents in failing heating, leaks and mold, some environmental concerns like lead and asbestos, pests, and sometimes failing elevators. So to address these needs, NYCHA now has 3 modernization programs, Permanent Affordability Commitment Together, or PACT. The city has committed to modernizing 62 housing units. Some of you on this call may already be partnering in this program, and this is NYCHA's longest standing, very successful program with over 20,000 housing units that are now in construction or complete, and almost the same amount in planning. Similar to the trust, NYCHA leases developments to a private partner for 99 years. That partner is responsible for the debt raise and would cover both. That would cover both the recapitalizations and the operations and maintenance. After the rehab, the property is operated and maintained by a private management company. Section 9, NYCHA's comprehensive modernization team now has taken 3,700 housing units through a traditional lump sum design build procurement, and will be entering into construction shortly. In this program, the funding has come primarily as a result of the 2019 HUD agreement through the New York City Capital Action Plan. There's no additional funding or change in property management. NYCHA operates through construction and operates and maintains rehab properties and assets after construction. These 3,700 housing units are very lucky to receive this level of funding. We're not yet seeing other federal commitments for comprehensive work. Although not scalable in its exact format, the design build rubric is being leveraged by the trust, and you'll hear more from Jenny on this. And now, again, the trust is the new model, and it acts as a developer responsible for the debt raise, leveraging the increased Section 8 subsidy like PACT, and sourcing the integrated team of design builders like CompMod to complete the recapitalizations. The trust partners with NYCHA as a managing agent to operate and maintain the trust converted property through and after the rehab, and you'll hear more on this from Eva. You see this pie chart here on the right, and if you do the math, all of these modernization programs equate to only about half of the number of apartments in our portfolio, in NYCHA's portfolio, and we urgently need every tool in the toolbox for the entire portfolio. Okay, under the legislation and how we've been building out the trust team, it's important that we cover our strategic capabilities. The first one is the capital delivery. We can move faster than traditional government agencies using alternative delivery methods like design build, potentially saving 12 to 18 months on capital projects. Those of you who will compete in the RFP will be selected based on quality and best value rather than the lowest price. Financing. The trust is eligible again for double the funding compared to NYCHA after converting through the federal Section 8 program, enabling the trust to raise capital for repairs. And you'll hear, I'll say less and I'll let Jillian talk more about this. We haven't built out the asset management capability, but it is a really important component that will be building out as we're working with EVA. And of course, the resident partnership piece is really important. It's important both through the board where 2 of our board members are residents. The only way for the trust to join, for NYCHA property to join the trust is through voting. And so that's it's been a really great process where, the residents decide on this model and then really helps us through the recapitalization. So if we back into the 25,000 units, just to give you a scale of the potential portfolio under the trust, that's about 35, give or take, developments, depending on size, over 50,000 residents, and potentially over $12 billion in work. Backing into the physical needs and the trust-specific needs, the scopes that will need to cover building systems like plumbing, electric, HVAC, elevators, high efficiency appliances and fixtures, but also social needs like accessibility, relocations, common area upgrades, and we'll also need to make sure that the environmental hazards like lead and asbestos are once and for all removed, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We'll also be seeking partnerships and pursuing historic tax credits in some places, many flavors of resiliency and decarbonization funding that is, there's a lot of it currently out there. And so I'll stop there and we'll, with all of that, pass it on to Jenny to dive into the capital project delivery. Jenny, it looks like you're on mute.
Classic. Thank you, Vlada, for telling me I'm mute, but also for a great introduction to the trust and our mission, our mandate, our scope, our scale. Important to understand. So I'm going to talk a little bit about design build in general before we really talk specifically about design build in the context of the trust specifically. So just really a general introduction for those of you who are not necessarily used to the words design build. You might find that you're more used to the concepts that are so new to government, but maybe not new to the rest of the development community. So what is design build? So important pieces to understand about it is that for the owner, we will be doing a single procurement of a team. Here you can kind of see it like a medium-sized arrow there for procurement. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we, sort of introduce the two-step process itself. But for the government, from the government side or the owner side, this is very advantageous to not have to procure a designer and then wait and procure a contractor on a separate timeline. So it's one longer procurement that results in the procurement of a single team that's going to deliver the entire project design and construction both. Because you have both pieces of that puzzle together from the beginning, there are a lot of exciting possibilities in terms of efficiencies, phasing, just sort of an iterative design process that can actually allow the traditional elements of construction and contracting and constructability to influence the design. This image here kind of shows more like a phased impact here, where you can start certain construction activities, fast-tracked activities before the design itself is 100% complete. All of these things are possible in design build, and it's one of the great advantages from both a schedule point of view, but also from an efficiency and kind of quality point of view as well, to have these team members all integrated from the beginning. So this is a big advantage, I think, from both sides, although it's often touted as a schedule advantage, for the owner side. So a couple of more pieces of design build that are important to understand. So on the left-hand side, you see the owner is signing a single contract with a design build entity. And that design build entity includes within it, in different contractual pieces, all of the different components required to deliver a project. So architecture, engineering services, GC services, trades, any sub-consultants, subcontractors, all of that is under the umbrella in one way or another of a single design build entity. So this really changes the game in terms of accountability, single source of accountability, at least from an owner's perspective. And also just in managing the project overall, the design build entity has the ability to manage the design and the construction all within their own umbrella. This kind of gets explained a little more in the right-hand side here, but with a particular note. So here in this model, the owner is responsible for providing the project's requirements to the design builder. And this may sort of not sound as impressive, except when you realize that in conventional design bid build construction, the owner provides these requirements first to a designer and then ultimately provides those design documents to a contractor. That phase, that actually is not what's happening here. Again, it becomes under the umbrella of a single design build responsibility to manage how the requirements get translated into design documents, which ultimately get translated into the physical work. So, I think this is a tremendous improvement. It keeps owners in the business of what they should be in the business of, which is detailing what they need out of a project, not necessarily prescribing all the ways in which you should solve their problems, but describing the problems themselves. And then the design builder has the ability to leverage their expertise in design, construction, optimization, constructability, all the things that an integrated team can produce when they're in control of all the pieces and parts. Ultimately, they're delivering the physical work, and they can manage all the internal processes in order to get the best physical work to everybody's advantage. So another piece I'm just going to point to here, and we'll talk about a little more, is this little bit above design builder that says best value. So I'll get into exactly what that means later, but if any of the folks on this call have done work with the government or even in other contexts, oftentimes the design team can be chosen. This is government procurement rules. They can be chosen in a quality-based selection process, but the construction contract needs to be procured using a competitive sealed bid process where the lowest responsive bidder needs to be selected. So there's a pretty big inherent mismatch oftentimes between how the design has been generated, selected, and managed, and how and with whom the physical work gets delivered. And this is frustrating for a lot of folks. Contractors get priced out. Contractors that do really, really good quality work, but maybe they're not the cheapest, get priced out by other people who are able to provide a cheaper version of it, and then perhaps make up for it later, either in quality or in change orders. So this is a tremendous advantage for, I think, both the industry as well as the owners to really, for government to be able to define what best value means for this project and this institution, and then be able to select based on that. So again, these are sort of general examples of the ways in which design build teams can organize themselves. I think the important thing to note here is that the project requirements, the project scale, the project scope really should be what dictates how the design build entity composes themselves. So these are just kind of 3 examples of what I've seen, and they're definitely not the only examples, but they're just sort of 3 as ifs. So the first one being a design build entity is a pre-existing company, a developer. They have contracts underneath them as major subcontractors for the designer and general contractor, and then those entities themselves have additional subcontracts for major subs. This may be suitable for a project where construction project management and project controls, real tight kind of control over those pieces of the project are the most important pieces of the project. This is probably the most common that I've seen. That's usually the way in which people feel that they can optimize their company's profits, is by having those people in the contractual driver's seat, so to speak, but it's certainly not always appropriate for the project. And an example here is the second one here. Another existing company didn't have to form a new company, but they are a CMGC. That's just how they've structured their business. And they do have major contracts with a designer and maybe a major trade sub. And again, this would be appropriate for a project where construction management and the actual delivery of the work are really the most important pieces of the project. And there may be a significant major trade involvement here. This is something I saw at the Port Authority a fair amount, where there's a single really important major trade involved in some of those big transportation projects. So it was beneficial to the design builder to have a more primary relationship contractually with the person and the entity providing that service or that product. The third one, I've seen this, in some of the more sensitive public-facing projects like the borough-based jails program, or some of the work that we did for the Parks Department for recreation centers, where either technical requirements and or kind of design requirements were really foregrounded enough to the importance of the project that the architect or the engineer firm became part of the actual primary contractual relationship. Different firms got together and created a new entity, in some instances a JV, in order to really foreground both kind of financially, responsibility wise, and also signal to the owners that that was a part of the team that would really have a huge amount of control over the delivery of the project. For this example, there are other, sort of design subspecialties with major roles, just to sort of emphasize that again. The example I had in my mind when I did this was something like the borough-based jails, where, technical and regulatory requirements were very, very large. There was a design specialty, very necessary, that was a subspecialty of design, deep subject matter expertise in jails and things like that. And then there often had to be a design lead that could really focus more on the public-facing components of the project. So all of that is to say that the project itself really dictates the composition of the team, and that's one of the great things about this delivery method, is that you're able to assemble a team or not assemble, with your own already pre-existing entity, assemble your subcontractors in a way that is going to provide the best value to the owner and to yourself as prime contract holder. So a lot of words on the slide, I know, but this is just to sort of emphasize some of the parallels. Although the words might be different, I feel that the themes are actually quite the same, of what I understand of how typically developers assemble their teams. In our design build model, as in the typical development process, there is a large amount of control to onboard a multidisciplinary team at the beginning of the project. And the person in control can onboard the appropriate team for the project, specifically pulling together the pieces that are going to serve the work and themselves and the owner the best. Because the different specialties and parts of the project are being brought on at the same time, the design and construction process is, can actually benefit from this early input, and can iterate designs, optimize designs with construction and constructability and cost input at a much greater level. The builder is at the table with the designer, and the owner really being able to impact the way certain things happen in real time, not months and years later. And then, the partnership here, the contract structure really is quite similar, in the sense that there is, a unified architect, engineer, GC kind of entity that's really able to team, with the owner to deliver this work. So how is this going to work in real time? How are our procurements working? So right now, as Vlada mentioned, we are borrowing heavily from the comp mod lump sum design build process. It is a two-step process. The first step is a request for qualifications. This is a publicly released request for qualifications. What happens here is a pre-qualification process, essentially. So we advertise publicly. There are specific requirements in terms of experience, demonstrated work on similar projects, some financial. I mean, we'll get into it. I think each procurement has a very specific RFQ that will tell applicants what requirements need to be demonstrated. But suffice to say, you put together a package of your qualifications, and then the owner reviews them and shortlists from that group it's usually three proposers to move on to the second phase, which is a confidential phase. So full details of the scope of the project, fully confirmed budgeting information. There's a tentative budget, up at the RFQ stage, confirmed details of the project and exactly what will be required to execute the work are only released to the three shortlisted proposers in this confidential setting. Okay, you can move on. Here, I think it's important to note that for the trust and for these typical comprehensive modernization projects, we're generally speaking looking for an integrated design build team with these areas of expertise. So we've talked a lot about design and construction. A lot of these projects have pretty heavy hazmat requirements, so that's going to be a very important component of the team. Tenant relocation is a very significant component that will be in the design builder's scope of work and engagement. So these are, again, each procurement will outline specifically what the requirements are, but in terms of a program that the trust is putting forward, these are the types of qualities that we're looking for when you put together your team. So again, this is an illustrative scope of the type of work these comprehensive modernizations are endeavoring to deliver. They are, quite extensive with respect to improving the very specific needs of the residents and this infrastructure here. If you have experience with NYCHA properties, I don't think any of these topics are going to be a surprise to you, but all of these are areas in the developments that the comprehensive modernization scopes are really looking to improve upon. I think what's important to understand about the way we structure our design build procurements is that we will provide in the RFP stage a baseline minimum scope that the proposal and the work needs to deliver, but we will also include lists of two other types of work, technical work. They'll fall into either priority betterments, we're calling them, or other betterments. They're areas that we would like to see incorporated into the proposal. And that is one significant way in which we're evaluating best value. So this is an opportunity to maximize the budget we have for modernization. And it's up to the ingenuity of the design build teams to propose combinations of betterments, priority and otherwise, to add on to the baseline minimum scope that we mandate in order to demonstrate their best value over other proposers. So this will be a key priority for us, and we'll be as explicit as possible about what these things are, that there's a minimum required scope, but compete to provide more given the same dollar amount and budget. So again, we have the ability to evaluate teams based on more than just a sealed envelope with the lowest number in it. I don't know if anyone's been to any of those bid openings, but it reminds me of Keno or something like that. But here we are able to evaluate your team on a lot more than that. We are looking for things like expertise, your like specific expertise in delivering this kind of work, which is not necessarily a factor in competitive sealed bids, your compliance record, your overall financial stability, the way that you manage risks. All of this will be explicitly described in the RFP, how we are weighting these factors when we evaluate, but this is sort of just, again, to sort of communicate that we are looking for not just how much scope you can deliver, which is important, but it's not just how much, but it's how you are going to deliver that project. This is as important, if not more important in a lot of ways, how this is going to roll out for all involved, for the residents who are going to be impacted by this work. All of this is very important to the trust. It's not just how much can you deliver for our given budget. So we are using for these first two procurements a lump sum traditional design build process. The trust has the ability to leverage other forms of alternative delivery. We will be building those other forms of alternative delivery out in the future. Things like progressive design build, CM at risk, just dropping these words here to get excited. But a lot of the issues around alternative delivery that I hear from industry are about setting a lump sum cost estimate for a project, without being able to do 100% complete design. So I guess to be clear, at the end of the RFP stage, your technical proposal will advance the work, the design work, far enough for everyone involved to feel comfortable committing to a lump sum for delivery of the project. Typically, this is around 30% design. This varies. Some things need to be designed a lot more detailed, some things not so much at all. But the goal is that we all can agree upon a specific amount of scope that you will propose for a lump sum amount. And this is not an easy process, and it's not without its anxieties and contingencies and risk. But there is a lot of work that we are doing, the trust is doing in partnership with NYCHA and in partnership with other stakeholders to make this process a little less risky for all of us. I think on the left-hand side, we have some kind of, again, illustrative examples of some of the technical work that we're undertaking in order to provide enough information before design has really begun for folks to get a sense of what the scope of work is going to be. So extensive hazmat testing of the subject properties. We're doing work with utility companies to do sort of preliminary capacity excuse me, and load analysis to understand what is out there and what the new demands might be given the proposed scope of work that we're looking to do. Looking at how much and what types of contract allowances will be included in the baseline, the available fundings to sort of facilitate any kind of unforeseen or seen unforeseen conditions. We will include as many reference documents as we are able to in the RFP, as-built, all the information about what's been going on at the development through the years, all of this to help everyone understand conditions at the site. And then during the procurement phase, again, this is the second step, the confidential step. That's just for the 3 proposers. There will be site visits where the shortlisted proposers will get to actually, visit the developments and take a look for themselves at some of the conditions. I think that stuff is really important to understand, that we're not just, letting people fly blind and throw numbers at something without really trying to provide answers as much as we can without actually doing the design work ourselves. We're also spending a lot of time, energy, and effort to engage with key stakeholders who have the often, unexpected impacts later on in projects. People like SHPO, people like FHEO in terms of accessibility. We are, doing preliminary feasibility studies on our end to understand how we'll be able to comply with our NYCHA agreements in terms of improving accessibility. So we know that we're not giving you something that you can't do. SHPO, we're trying to, again, engage them early with what the proposed scope of work is going to be, get feedback on how we're wording our requirements. They can't commit to approving something easily because we haven't designed it, but we're doing as much as we can to understand and explain what the objectives are to them and then to you folks for proposals. And we're doing extensive work to analyze the vacancies across the portfolio, modeling different relocation phasing scenarios, again, to be sure that we're not asking you something that you can't do in at least more than one way for the scope and budget that we're proposing. So again, we are in a lump sum design build contract. And so we here on the left, you see we have an illustrative modernization budget. We have a budget that gets published, a soft version of this with the RFQ. So potential proposers understand the scale of the job, and then more formally in the RFP phase. And design builders, when they propose, must include all of these things typically in their proposal. Again, all the details, very specific, will be in this specific RFP, but it's important to note that, generally speaking, the project completion within schedule, we hold that date. Baseline scope we talked about, that needs to be part of the proposal. We have a completion guarantee requirement, which was teased in an RFQ and details more again in the RFP. All the soft and hard costs, all consulting services, all the pieces and parts that you need to get it done, as well as the physical work, are included in this modernization budget that we'll provide. And this, again, just to sort of, hammer it home, profit is there too. We want you to make a profit. Everyone should feel good about this work. The best projects are delivered when everybody is doing well. And so we have included estimates when we're modeling our budgets for profits for industry. But all of this does need to be included. And then back to the idea of, one of the primary ways in which you're going to demonstrate as a proposer best value to us is you're going to compete on what else you can give us above and beyond what the minimums are to deliver with this project. Just a quick overview before I hand it off, how this typically works. We've hit on this a little, but this just kind of sums it up. Request for qualifications. It takes a couple of months for us to allow to publicly advertise, for folks to put together a team, ask some questions. We do some evaluation. And then, as I mentioned, we're in the background here setting a hard project budget, which accompanies the RFP, which is released to typically 3 shortlisted proposals in a confidential manner. This design build team selection, this does take a while, as I sort of hinted at earlier. The procurement phase for design build is a little bit lengthier. It is a time in which the shortlisted proposers are expected to do some, the 30% or so it needs to do in order to get to a confident lump sum. We'll have confidential dialogue meetings together to sort of facilitate the best possible proposal. Our goal is to get 3 fantastic proposals, but it is an outlay of energy and effort. We do compensate the non-selected proposers in this phase with a stipend, and details on that again are in the actual procurement documents, but we don't expect that everyone can do this for free, and we want the best of the best. So it's to compensate for that. Then there's a phase early while we are securing the remainder of the financing for the project, where the design builder has commenced in design, working towards getting permits, doing some early work that either the design builder has proposed and we've accepted, or that we've stipulated needs to happen. Then we have this moment in time, financial close. Everybody's getting paid. Everybody's happy. We've been working very hard in the background to make this happen. And then we can proceed with the start of major construction. So again, just an overview. Projects vary from phase to phase. Some are very large, some are very small, but in terms of the order of operations, this is what we got. So hopefully this doesn't sound as unfamiliar to you as maybe the words design build do, and that it resembles some of the things you're used to doing and seeing. But at the very least, I think it offers tremendous advantages from both an owner side and a vendor side to allow the entire integrated team to be selected and calibrated per project, and to influence one another in a positive way so that the project can get delivered efficiently, effectively, and to everybody's satisfaction. And with that, I'll hand it to Jillian.
Great, thank you so much. So for those of you who are on the developer side, I think that you're probably used to coordinating many different work streams. Within the design and construction work stream, there are many different prongs, and within sort of the financing and property management work stream, there are even more. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of the financing work stream, but it's really about building a business plan in partnership with NYCHA. So I'll turn it over to Eva after not too much time here. But we're very excited and thrilled about the additional sources that we can bring to these projects. I think that for those of you who have a history in preservation financing, these are not going to be normal to you, but they're not going to be abnormal to you, but they're new to NYCHA. So a typical NYCHA capital project can only access green incentives and grants, but for us, we're looking to access bond financing and other forms of debt. We'll use interim income to fund a portion of projects, although that will be pretty small and underwritten to some of the historical experience that the PAC program has had. And then we also expect and anticipate that for some of our projects, we'll be able to use tax credit equity. For our first set of projects, we're not anticipating using LIHTC. But these expectations for funding are driving some of our decisions early about what's included in the design builder scope, and it's informing some of the early planning that we are doing with operations. In terms of the project sequencing, the design build has a two-step procurement, and we are also planning to do a two-step procurement on roughly a similar timeline for financing partners. We're going to go out with very bare bones requirements. For those of you who have seen the RFQ for our present design build, there's a lot of information that's required. Financing doesn't really work in that same way, where you're actually not getting so much detail from your financial partners. It's really the other way around. So we'll be doing a pretty limited request for qualifications for financing partners. That's pretty streamlined, and expressions of interest. And then we'll plan to release an RFP with the goal of selecting a financing partner to coincide with basically the selection of the design build partner. We expect that that's the right timing to align with when we want major construction and financial close to start. But we're planning for the project funding at the beginning, and the procurement is happening roughly at the same time, with the major notice to proceed for capital work all coordinated with those financial closing milestones. And in order to do that, the largest source of funding really is coming from two places. One would be the tax credit equity, and then the other would be from raising debt. And so for that, I'll turn it over to Eva to talk about the work that we've been doing to develop an operating plan for trust projects.
Thank you, Jillian. I'm really excited about this partnership with the trust. This is a really unique opportunity for NYCHA to redevelop our business model one more time with the thought of a fully recapitalized building, which we really haven't had the opportunity to do. And all of the new financing that Jillian has been talking about gives us an opportunity to offer a different business model that we can offer under our typical Section 9 platform. And so we've been doing a lot of work to think about with what this opportunity is for us, and how we would structure our property management and maintenance plan for the trust. So we've been working on a draft management and maintenance plan. We're also working on a full M&O budget to see what it would look like, and working together to bring that into a property management agreement under the timeframe that Jillian mentioned. Next slide. So what are some of the operating principles that we're thinking about as we build this out? First and foremost, we did extensive conversations with our partners to really understand their best practices in managing the properties, and then bringing that together with NYCHA's already unique experience. We have brought this together really with a resident focus, and that's something that's always been very important to me in my work here at NYCHA, is driving things from the resident experience. And so what does that look like both during the construction phase and after the construction phase? Because they really do present two very different management challenges for us. So the first thing is to really think about what's our strategic experience here at NYCHA. We know these buildings, we know their building systems. We have warehouses of parts from 1950 that are best suited to deal with our aging systems in a way that some of the private management companies don't have. These are things that unfortunately experts in for lack of any other option. And so that knowledge of how to repair these aging systems, how to deal with them, how they usually fail as well, how we diagnose those, that's a unique experience to NYCHA that we'll be able to bring in during the construction phase as we're still dealing with those aging systems. In addition, we do have extensive experience already with the Section 8 management. We have about 2,700 units under management in our current portfolio. We've been able to maintain an extremely high rate of HQS compliance on those units, and we're continuing to do process improvements and repairs to increase subsidy and make sure that we're in compliance with that program. So NYCHA is really uniquely qualified to manage and be a management partner for these properties. And then lastly, what we're bringing in from the best practices on the PAC side and working with the trust and what we're going to be expected of from the trust as the owner and leasee of the property is really understanding that level of service that the trust wants to provide to our residents and that we want to provide to the residents. So reorienting our employees to the trust service model, making sure that our properties benefit from all of NYCHA's resources leveraged in. So, while we'll have a property management plan and property staff specific to the trust site, we will be able to leverage in all of NYCHA's resources as needed in order to make sure that property succeeds. So whether that's in the case of an emergency, whether that's in the case of ensuring the property is fully staffed at all times, we offer a deep bench of coverage that not a lot of entities are able to offer. And we're really excited about that opportunity. So moving over to the transaction and conversion planning, I think that the main message here that we want to reiterate is that we are starting early, that we are planning early, we are staffing up, and that we are focused on managing vacancies and relocation. So we know that those are going to be key issues that we're going to have to address, and we want to get that right from the beginning because we know that's really key as the conversion happens. Next slide. So on vacancy management, again, when I talk about leveraging in all of NYCHA's resources to make the trust properties successful, one of the things we'll be doing is holding vacancies at properties, both the development that's converting as well as neighboring developments in order to support a successful relocation plan for construction. We're going to be able to develop policies to enable those relocations, talking with HUD to make sure that we're fully utilizing everything that we have available. We are going to ensure that the number of vacancies for the design builder include enough to manage all of those expectations. And that is something that we've been able to do now within NYCHA as we have a relocation team that's scaling up and prepared to do this work for the trust. Next slide. Resident lease signings, as I said, when we're starting early, this is one of the key areas that we want to start early on because we know that that this can be a challenge. While we also bring that unique experience regarding our building systems and our aging building systems, we also present a unique experience with understanding our residents and knowing the tenants within the sites. And so being able to start up and work closely with them as early as 18 to 21 months ahead of closing in order to make sure we're updating resident files, making sure households are correctly identified, making sure that they're understanding the new lease requirements, understanding what the process is going to hold for them. And then obviously, as we get closer to conversion, getting all of those lease signings done ahead of time. And we're prepared to staff up and make sure that this is done correctly. And addressing life, health, safety issues. This one is particularly, top of my list. This is something that we're doing, across our entire portfolio. We're focused on every day as part of our daily work in responding to work orders. One of the things I'm really proud of is right now we are required to do 100% apartment inspections across NYCHA. And this is actually a new requirement for us starting this year. We're not even halfway through the calendar year yet, and we've already done 57% or 83,000 apartment inspections. And so every time we get into an apartment, that means we are seeing the conditions. We are actually making more work orders in order to address any repair needs, but it gives us that sense of what's really happening, being able to address life, health, safety, whether it's a window guard that was never installed correctly or something more serious. But that apartment inspection is really our ability to get eyes on the ground and see what's going on inside the units what the residents are dealing with, and then start addressing it. So this to me is a really important indicator. I'm really proud of our success in getting this going, and this is something that we will bring over into the trust properties as well. And then overall, our response times on both the maintenance side and skilled trade side have increased dramatically over the last few years as part of our transformation efforts here at NYCHA. We've had to completely restructure how we do business, change our operating model, and through our work order reform efforts are really starting to see the impact of that through a significant increase in our response time for both maintenance and skilled trade work orders. Also, within those response times, we're seeing an increase of over 5% of how the work is being performed, making sure that the work is getting done on that first visit more than having to come back for multiple visits over time. And these are really important indicators, again, to the resident experience every day with us. So when we're able to just go in and fix it and not have to schedule follow-ups, that's the resident means that we're, a significantly improved quality of life for them. And we're continuing to change. So we had our transformation plan come out a few years ago now, but it's not set in stone. We're continuing to improve. And so just as recently as earlier this month, we've reallocated resources within the organization, over 100 painters and paint supervisors to our neighborhoods in our decentralization efforts in order to continue to better address resident needs specific to painting. And so this is, just proof that we're continuing to improve. And as we look to the trust and the trust operating requirements, we're confident that we'll be able to continue to serve those residents under the trust model and bring, again, that best of the pack world with NYCHA's experience together. So with that, I will be handing it back to Vlada.
Eva, thank you so much for joining us today. And also, I don't think you said this in your introduction. Eva has really been thinking about this for many, many years since she's joined NYCHA. So I would say since the 2019 HUD agreement, which required us to develop the transformation plan, Eva wrote the transformation plan and really had the opportunity to think and reimagine what NYCHA operations will look like. And then she became the chief operating officer. So we're extremely lucky to be partnering with Eva as we're building out the trust modernization program and thinking about what, different operations for NYCHA looks like. And you got a little bit of a flavor of the things that Eva has been able to implement in the last couple of years with very limited resources. So I can only imagine what she's going to be able to do once we are able to secure additional subsidy and give her some additional resources. So I'm really excited to be a partner with Eva. And quite frankly, I don't know that NYCHA staff had really had an opportunity to manage a fully operational building or property. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this workforce can do that, and we'll be able to do that with additional resources. I know that there are some questions in the chat. And Jenny, thank you for answering them. We are recording this session. We will be putting it up online. So again, thank you for joining. Thank you for asking additional questions. And if there are any that we haven't answered, please reach out to us. Our information is on our website, and we'll continue to hope that you will bid on the ongoing solicitation, any of the future solicitations that will be standing up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.